Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Gary A. Swaby, and you're now listening to the Snowfall Aftermath. And I'm here with Mr. Richard Bailey Jr. How are you doing, Rich?
Doing good, Gary. What's up, viewers?
What's up, indeed? And today we will be recapping Snowfall Season 4, Episode 10, and it's the finale of the season. And I know a lot of people were excited for this episode. This is what we've been waiting for, to see what happens and everything. And a lot did happen. We got some pretty intense moments in this episode, and maybe some surprises as well. So yeah, lots to discuss, and we're gonna have a lot of like questions later on regarding what's gonna happen next in the story and everything. So we won't keep you guys waiting too much. We'll dive right into our takeaways. But first of all, I just want to remind you guys, if you enjoy listening to this show, please hit the like button. You can also consider subscribing to us, if you like the content that we are, delivering. And also make sure you leave your comments as well to let us know what you think of Snowfall and, in particular, this finale. And definitely tell us what you think is going to happen next also, because I want to hear all the theories. I've been looking at these Facebook groups and everything, seeing what people are talking about, and I've seen some like real crazy theories. So yeah, I want all of you guys to bring that energy to this video, so we can talk about all these conspiracy theories and stuff. So, but yeah, let's get straight into the takeaways. I'm going to take the lead this week. So yeah, let's get right to it. So I'm going to get right to the action here. But but there's just like so much to dissect here. But yeah, like I'm gonna get right to the juicy stuff that happens. So the two simultaneous gun showdowns that took place in this episode, like we saw, obviously the build up for both of those was really good. It was really well done. And of course the two gun showdowns I'm talking about is when Alton is being confronted by Reed, and then Franklin shows up with his mother Sissy, and then it keeps flipping over to the hospital where Louis is with Jerome. Well, Louis is alone at the time, and Scully shows up, and she kind of tells him Jerome isn't here, but she's lying. And then Jerome does eventually show up, and Scully is holding a gun to Louis during this time because he wants revenge. So these like are the two, kind of this was like the midpoint of the episode, and like the build up to these to those two showdowns was crazy, and they even intertwined a little bit, which was nice to see, because of course throughout the episode, Franklin was trying to locate his father, because he knew Reed was looking for him, and if Reed got to him first, it was likely Reed was going to kill him. So Franklin was trying to look for his father. He shut down the whole shelter while trying to find his father, which was kind of like it's kind of people found that kind of ruthless of him to do that, but he was doing anything necessary to find Alton before Teddy would. And then we had that scene where he finally caught up to his father at the house, and Scully came in, guns blazing. There was a shootout in the house, and Scully got hit, Alton got hit, they're both injured, and then that kind of led to this scene that I'm talking about here. And yeah, I just want to give the writers props for how they set this up, because it was really well done. So that is kind of my first takeaway. But that was a big moment in the episode, but there's so much to talk about surrounding that major scene, and like, so I'm gonna shift the focus to Jerome, at this moment, Jerome and Louis. So obviously, after how things panned out, because we know that Louis didn't want this gang war thing to happen. She was kind of, you know, against the whole thing from the start, and Franklin was the one who kind of took the lead and made all of these decisions that kind of led up to this whole gang war with Manboy and Scully. And then, you know, we saw what happened with you know, Khadijah and her, you know, her daughter and everything getting caught up in it. So yeah, Louis was against it, and then Louis ended up getting, you know, hit as well. She ended up getting injured. So towards, you know, the latter half of this episode, we see, you know, when Louis gets out of hospital and she's somewhat healed, she makes the decision, you know, her and Jerome, to kind of part ways with Franklin, but they still want to do business with him. So, you know, basically they want to buy the drugs from him, but they will go on, like, they'll be an independent, you know, distributor. So they'll be supplying from Franklin just to keep it in the family, but they're going to go about it themselves in terms of how they sell and distribute the product. And we know that, you know, they have that connection in Little Rock. So, like you mentioned in a previous episode, Rich, I think this opens up the door for us to see, you know, more of that dynamic of, you know, Louis and Jerome dealing with, you know, these other, you know, customers of theirs, particularly that family in Little Rock. And I'm sure we're going to see at least one of them is hooked on you know, the product because of how interesting.
The son.
Yeah, definitely the son. so yeah, and you know, it was interesting that they made that decision, because and that you know, that scene where they tell Franklin as well, like, you could just see it in his eyes, like he knows that, you know, even though he's able to continue operating now, he it's not going to be the same for him. He's significantly weaker without them, because they were kind of like mentors to him. Like they were the first people who he went to when he wanted to kind of, you know, sell drugs basically, and they kind of taught him the ins and outs of the streets and, you know, the different dynamics. They gave him a place to come to, you know, to kind of plan everything out. So yeah, Franklin will be significantly weaker without those two, and it's going to be interesting how he kind of makes up for that loss. You know, the fact that they're going at it on their own and everything. So yeah, that was just an interesting point. And then of course, you know, he discusses this with Leon, and it seems like Leon's heart isn't in it anymore either. And Franklin kind of stands his ground on this one, because he's like, look, I risked my life to save you, you know, when you know, things were looking dark for you, you know. So he kind of stood his ground, and he said, you're not going anywhere, you know, you're basically my slave now, because I saved your life. So so I think we're going to see a huge rift coming between these two in the future, because if Leon's heart isn't in it anymore, it's going to be hard to kind of, you know, it's going to be hard for him to be the same Leon that he's always been if his heart really isn't there. And I'm pretty sure Wanda will play a role in this too, because she's got clean now, so she's somewhat on the right path, even though she kind of helped them set up Khadijah a little bit, you know, in that previous episode. She's kind of going in the right direction because she managed to get clean. So I feel like she might have some sort of influence over Leon to kind of, you know, stop doing what he's doing and live, you know, more of a moral lifestyle. So I think we're going to see that struggle play out in season 5 for sure, with Leon and him wanting to get out of the game. And it will be interesting to see, you know, what impact that has on their friendship, especially with the sacrifices, you know, Franklin made to save Leon. So
I agree.
And yeah, so at this moment, it feels like everybody's kind of turning on Franklin, you know, and and you know, I guess that leads into the whole Reed thing as well, because even Reed is slowly turning on him. So going back to, you know, the showdown, the conclusion to that scene, you know, was basically, okay, Alton and Sissy are gonna leave. They're gonna go to Cuba, and Alton is never gonna open his mouth again. They're never gonna, you know, hear from them again. They're just gonna chill in Cuba, right? That's how they're able to diffuse that showdown. And of course, you know, we have that intense moment where, you know, you highlighted it when we spoke about the episode, Rich, where you know, as Reed was holding up his gun to Alton and Alton was holding up his gun to Reed, Franklin, you know, was holding up his gun to Teddy. So it was like, if Teddy / Reed, if he pulled the trigger, then, you know, Franklin was gonna, you know, instantly hit him too, or something, you know. So and there was a few awkward glances from Teddy that showed that he wasn't happy about that.
Yep.
He was very uncomfortable about that. So in that moment, he knew that he couldn't pull the trigger in that moment, and I guess he somewhat had enough respect for Franklin to where he was like, okay, I'm not going to kill his father in front of him. I'll do it at a later time. I'll let him get away for now. So then, you know, we see later on in the episode when Alton and Sissy are in Cuba, you know, and Alton is in bed. He wakes up and Sissy's there in the sundress and everything, looking all cute. And and she's about to go out, you know, and do some shopping and stuff. I have more to say about this scene, but I'm gonna save it for later. But yeah, when Sissy is gone, Reed actually shows up, and and he's pointing a gun at Alton, and I guess we're supposed to assume that he pulls the trigger, but we don't actually see it happen, which is what opens up a lot of discussion here, because we don't see the action take place. But a lot of people assume that means Teddy killed Alton. So and we'll discuss more on that, you know, as we get to it later on in discussion. But yeah, that was really interesting. And I found it funny that Franklin, you know, didn't suspect a thing when, you know, Reed was like, immediately after the plane takes off, Reed is like, yeah, I can't work with you right now. Gustavo is gonna handle everything. I gotta go. I gotta go out of town. I gotta go handle some stuff. You know,
gotta take some time off.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and Franklin didn't suspect anything. Like, so I guess he still trusts this guy or something. But and that goes back to what Teddy himself told Franklin, you know, a few episodes ago, where he said, trust nobody. Like, no matter who it is, don't trust anybody. And Franklin still trusts Reed, kind of, you know, especially in that moment. So yeah, that was interesting to see. But yeah, so, and before I get to Melody, I just want to like point out the fact that, like, even though this, like, for the past few episodes, it's been kind of ridiculous that Franklin is still walking with a cane after so long. Because it seems like he doesn't even need it. But I do like how they, you know, did the whole, okay, he left behind the cane in her classroom and now he's walking proper, like he's healed again. Because, you know, Melody is the reason he's walking with the cane, right? So, so that was very well done there. Go ahead.
And I was going to say that was a very perfectly crafted way to end the season, because if you recall, when the season started, it showed him in the bed, remembering what happened with him and Melody and using the cane. So that was a perfect way to end it, because it goes with the way everything started this season.
Yeah. Yeah, and Melody is like the whole reason a lot of things panned out, because obviously she gave the information to Irene, and then, you know, Irene this whole season has been kind of blowing everything up for Franklin. So, she is the catalyst of a lot of the problems that Franklin faced this season. So, yeah. And I think the fact that, she opened this season and closed it, I think that means she's going to play a big part in the next season also. I don't think this, this little relationship between them is over. This fractured relationship, I don't think it's over at all. I think she's going to continue to be a thorn in Franklin's side. So I can't wait to see what they do with that moving forward. But yeah, that's pretty much my takeaways of this episode. So I'm going to hand it over to you. So yeah, let us know what your takeaways were.
So first and foremost, some excellent takeaways as always. I have a couple of points I'm going to add in here. But so let's get started right off and say this. The director of the episode, Carl Seaton, did a phenomenal job with this season finale. I've seen some people be critical of it. Some people in the group that we're in, some people said it was lame. Others said it was great. I think this was fantastic as far as the season finale is concerned, because it was tension from the beginning to the very end of the season. And that is how you want, to really keep people on the edge of their seats. Starting with this episode, you had the whole situation with, Franklin gets a page from Teddy, and Teddy is telling him, Alton is on the radio popping off about Teddy. Talk about, yes, I know this CIA guy. He goes by the name Teddy. Reed Thompson. Yes, he goes by the name Reed Thompson. And from that moment onward, because I remember as soon as I saw that clip, I sent you a text and said, "Yeah, Alton probably gonna get killed in this episode," because it just you don't pop off like that, which is kind of crazy. But you understand why he's doing this, because again, he knows that what happened with Irene. There's something about that that's very suspicious, and he knows the CIA was behind it, so he felt as though he had to speak out on her behalf. So I totally get that. But the one thing I will say, and let's go on a character by character basis. With Alton this episode, I liked how they had a flashback at the very beginning of the episode to show when Franklin was in school and Alton came to the school because Franklin refused to say the Pledge of Allegiance. At that point, it showed you how Alton felt that he had control over his son and what he had to do and what he wanted to do, and still looked at him as his son. And then when you come to the end of this episode, you see it's a totally different situation. We all know as viewers that Franklin is now a grown man. This is not the same character that we saw from season 1 of Snowfall. He has been through some stuff that has allowed him to grow. Alton, for whatever reason, because Alton has not been around consistently until recently, he, I guess, never really figured that Franklin was growing. So I'm glad that they showed that to show this is how it was when Franklin was a kid. Alton had control over him and would just do whatever to make sure that he was in control of what was going on in his son's life. Now he can't do that because Franklin is a grown man responsible for his own decisions. So I'm glad they put that in there because it made total sense. We got to what happened towards the end of the episode. So shout out to them for that, for sure. But just a few other things I want to say about Alton before I move on to some of the other characters. When Alton got involved in this, the shootout with Scully and Franklin, and got shot by Scully, and then you see Franklin goes to check on him and tell him, "Yeah, I need you to just leave, go to Cuba, go away." And then he decides to hit his son in the head and knock him unconscious. And then, as if that wasn't enough, when he shows up to confront Teddy, this guy, obviously still wounded from the gunshot earlier, thinks that he actually has a chance to go toe-to-toe with Teddy. It was at that moment, that's when I knew. Now I know why Franklin is so delusional as a character, because his father is also delusional to think that he even has a chance in that whole fight. And the exchange with Reed was funny. I laughed a little bit because Reed tried to make it seem as though he was understanding and caring, and he's just doing what he wants to do. He's just a businessman. But as the conversation continued, you now know, everything that has been said about Teddy was accurate, and all the stuff that Alton was saying about, I know you have other intentions. I don't trust you. Now you felt that more and more. And that's why I say they did a very good job with the tension, because you got that from the beginning of the episode to the very end of the episode. There was tension with pretty much every moment with different characters, just like you said earlier, with the stuff with Scully as well. So that was very well done. But yeah, and we'll get into later on what happened with Alton in the very end of the season. But yeah, the Alton character, I think they did. I think Kevin Carroll has done an excellent job with the character, because you kind of understand why he wants to stand up for his community and try to stop what's happening in the community. You still don't agree with his motives of why he did it, because he never spoke to Franklin about having a conversation with Irene. He decided, I'm going to tell her everything I know and start all this stuff up. And if he had just had a conversation with Franklin before he did that, maybe things would have ended up differently. But then again, maybe not, because he is stubborn and he probably still would have talked to Irene either way. Yeah. But that's something definitely to consider, because again, though, Kevin Carroll did an excellent job with the character. I would hope that we'll see more of him in season 5, but I don't know. We'll have to get into that later. As for Franklin, this episode, my takeaway for Franklin, this is a very ruthless character, a very dark and ruthless character. You mentioned the line that he had about getting all the homeless people, tell them to get out of here, tell them to get out, and then when I contact my father, then they can come back. That goes to show you that he is very selfish and thinks that he deserves to have all this power and that people should be working for him. And you saw that when you saw his reaction to Louis and Jerome and what they told him at the end of the episode. My thought is, after all the hell that they've been through this season with Franklin, I totally understand why they don't want to work with him anymore, because he was very indecisive this season at a lot of points. Didn't really act on a lot of the things that were happening. And then as a result, Louis gets shot. And then this leads Jerome down a path of having to kill off some of the people that were involved in that whole process. So to me, it really makes sense that they would go off and do their own thing, because they have proven that they know what they're doing. And even with the whole setup of Khadijah, remember who gave Franklin that idea? It was Louis from her bed at the hospital, who said, this is what you should do to convince her to get her. And it worked. So to me, I fully would understand, and I would give them the blessing of, yeah, sure, I'll give you product and you can do what you want to do. That's it. But again, Franklin is a very selfish character, very powerful character. But again, a lot of people like this character because he is evil, because you still want to see him win in one way or another. That's just the appeal of the character, and Damson Idris does an excellent job as well. So that's what that is as far as the charm factor is concerned. But the one point I did want to make, when he had the conversation with Leon, I don't know if you felt the same way, and he told Leon, I risked everything for you. Now you're going to continue working for me. When I saw that, I got the vibe of, this reminds me of Breaking Bad and how Walter White treated Jesse, because Jesse was trying to get out multiple times, but kept going, had to keep going, because Walter just kept things rolling, kept telling the people that were paying, yes, this is my guy, he's working with me. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen with Leon and Franklin moving forward, because I don't want it to end the same way that Breaking Bad did with those two characters, where one is in control and trying to take control of the other. But it's an interesting dynamic that I want to see how they're going to differentiate that story from what's already been done in other movies, films, etc. So I look forward to that.
That's an interesting parallel. I didn't even think of that one, but yeah, that is quite similar to that dynamic.
Oh yeah. I mean, and the thing is, though, what's different about it is that you understand Franklin's motives as to why he's going to say that, because he really truly did risk everything to protect Leon and lost a lot in that process. So you totally understand that. Whereas with Walter White was in it for himself from the very beginning. Once Jesse told him how to do this and was there, he was in it to make himself feel good, as he alluded to what he said in the finale of that show. I did this for me. I did this for me, and that's what it was all about. He didn't really. Yes, he cared about Jesse to an extent, but it was always about him. This dynamic is different because you understand what Franklin had to sacrifice to side with Leon. So it's not like it's totally the same dynamic. It's definitely different. But that's why I say I'm looking forward to seeing how they're going to tell that story with these two characters, because Leon has been through a lot of stuff, and I totally understand him wanting to get out the game. But obviously, it ain't going to be that simple. We'll see what happens. Two other quick points I want to mention. You mentioned Scully and the fact that he was in the hospital. He had Louis and Jerome at gunpoint, and then he collapsed on the floor. You know, Jerome pinned him to the ground. He was still bleeding. Right. Now, people have theories that perhaps maybe he bled out. I don't know about that because he's in a hospital. I mean, I feel like if you're in a hospital, you probably can get some assistance. And then you saw that when Franklin showed up and spoke to Jerome briefly, the police was also there. So my guess is they probably, stitched him up or whatever at the hospital. But the police, I'm pretty sure that after he got stitched up, either he's still in the hospital or the police brought him into custody. So I don't think that character is completely dead yet. No. We'll find out.
I definitely don't think he's dead at all.
Yeah. But him getting over, he's not going to get over what happened. And so he's still dangerous. But again, it may be an issue with Franklin now since everyone is off splitting their own directions. We'll see how that's handled.
Yeah, like with that situation, it really depends what was said after. Do you think that Jerome might have had further conversation with Scully after that? Because
you know what, I have seen theories about that also. I have seen people have theories that perhaps he is going to be working with Louis and Jerome, and that was something that they did because they felt guilty that things went so far with everything that happened. That could totally be the case. Obviously, we didn't see that, and I guess they are going to save that for next season because they have a lot of different surprises that they want to throw at us. But there's no way that this guy, there's no way that this actor is done with this show because we didn't see him die. You just saw him laying on the ground and there was blood, but you didn't see him die. And even when Franklin showed up and was talking to Jerome, there was nothing about, oh yeah, he died. They didn't say anything. He just said that he showed up and he was worried. So they intentionally left that to keep you guessing going into next season as to what happened with that character. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that later, I guess. But yeah.
For sure. And the final point that I will make is with Gustavo, I think this is going to be a very interesting way to expand the show, because now a lot of people are going to be wondering, who is this new guy that's going to be working with Gustavo? Yeah. How is he going to interact with Gustavo? And then when Teddy eventually shows up, how is he going to interact with Teddy? Part of me thought, wouldn't it be interesting if the new guy actually is Avi that they bring in to work with him? But they won't do that because Avi has his own thing going on. But the dynamic of bringing in another character that no one knows about is something that's going to keep people guessing. It really raises the intrigue as to what can we expect next season. There's so many questions going into season 5 where you really have to guess what's going to happen next. And then the other thing with Gustavo is the whole thing about him still looking for Lucia. From what I understand, that actress left the show because she didn't feel like she was she wasn't really interested in doing the show anymore. I don't know if she's coming back because it feels like they keep leaving that in there where he keeps mentioning her. They keep bringing her up as a possibility. So I don't know if that means that she may eventually come back next season or in future seasons. I have no idea. But I definitely would like to know where they're going with that storyline, because they want you to remember, yes, this is a person that Gustavo had a relationship with, business and personal. And you want to know what happened to that character because she literally just disappeared from the show. So I'm curious to see how they're going to answer that question, because I figure if the character is gone, you don't need to mention them anymore, but they keep mentioning her over and over again every chance they get. So we'll see.
Yeah, I could definitely see her making a return, whether it's going to be, next season or season after or something. But yeah, they're definitely going somewhere with that storyline because, like you said, they kept teasing it throughout this whole season. So,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah,
Exactly. So we'll see what happens. But for the most part, that's my main takeaways from the episode. I was glad to see Melody return, and I figured that she might return because after what happened with Irene, I figured they were going to bring her back into the fold. But I do believe that's not the last time we've seen of her either, because Franklin had said he can't let things from the past hurt his future. And at that point, if that is the case, why didn't you take out Mel right then and there? You didn't. So now you leave the door open to the possibility that she might show up again in the future. And he didn't really answer her question either. When she asked, "Did you kill my father?" He shook his head like, "Yeah, ma'am," and he said, "Yeah, and goodbye, Mel. That's it." So you didn't answer her question. Yet and of course, she of course at that moment she looked like she was afraid when she saw him walking away that maybe he's going to pull out a gun or whatever, and he puts the cane down. That's fine, but with all due respect, I think we know that Mel is not going to let that go. And I would not be surprised if we see her make a return next season. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I definitely think she'll come back for sure. Because that's kind of like it's like a lingering sort of love interest, but it's also like it could also be his downfall kind of thing. So so it causes so much drama that I think it has to, like, Melody has to be there, So,
yeah.
So yeah, she's coming back, but yeah, great takeaways, of course. But there's still so much to discuss because this is the finale. Now there's a gaping hole in the rest of our 2021 because there's no more Snowfall now until next year. So it's only right that we talk about, like, we do a deep dive on some of these topics, just to see what the temperature is for season 5 and some of the theories that we that we think could be legit. So I'm gonna ask a series of questions about the aftermath of this episode, and
Okay.
And then we'll end it off by just giving our expectations of season 5. So since we already kind of discussed Scully a few moments ago, so I'm gonna start with this one, right? So the question was, what is next for Scully? So as we just discussed, we don't think this character is dead. We think he's still alive, right? And so if you want my theory on this first, I feel like he made peace with Louis and Jerome in that moment, because of course Louis kind of talked him down, and Scully, he's an interesting character because he seems like, on the surface, he seems like a really kind of what's the word I'm looking for, like aggressive kind of character, but like really he's shown that he can be compassionate and that he has like a more soft side also, and he's able to show reason somewhat. And for a lot of these last few episodes, he was kind of just chilling, like he was trying to calm Khadijah down, and we thought he was going to be the aggressor in these situations. Now obviously he's got nothing left, like, and when you're in that place where you feel like you have nothing more to live for, that's when like you're the most dangerous, because you'll do anything at that point. But still, Louis and Jerome was clearly able to kind of like talk him down from, like, because he could have easily pulled the trigger. He didn't do it, and then he bled out or whatever. But I think he kind of made peace with them, and I think they have an understanding that this has to end somewhere. Otherwise, if people keep getting killed, there's gonna keep being revenge over and over again. So until like everybody's dead basically. So I think Scully understands that, but I still think he might have a score to settle with Franklin Saint himself. And the reason I asked, it depends what the conversation was, if he spoke to Jerome and Louis again after that, because maybe they could have been like, look, we're going on our own now. Like me and we don't agree with Franklin, so we're setting out on our own. We're independent now. We're not affiliated with Franklin. And if they told that to Scully, then Scully might feel like he can target Franklin now. Like he can just target Franklin if he still feels compelled to get revenge for Khadijah. He might just put all his focus and attention on Franklin, especially since he got injured when he came after Franklin in the first place. So I think Scully is going to still cause problems for Franklin, and Franklin's going to have a lot of problems clearly next season. So yeah. But what do you think?
I agree 100% with your theory, because yes, by the end of this season we know Franklin obviously is looking at it is he has control back now. He's in charge, and I think one of the dynamics that was introduced is that Franklin, as well as Louis and Jerome, they all believe that they can do this on their own. They all believe that they are separate. And again, with all that Louis has done this season, with the moves that she has made behind the scenes and stuff that she's been telling Franklin to do, obviously she has shown that she can be an organization like this. But the issue is that they work well together as a unit. So they're all going to have their own issues that they have to deal with. My guess is that as far as Jerome and Louis is concerned, things are going to get out of control in Arkansas. I think we see that coming from a mile away with that one episode. And they had to tell them multiple times, don't take this product. And they kept asking all these questions. So something's that's gonna get out of control. That may actually get out of control to the point where they may, I don't know if they're gonna reach back out to Franklin or may allude to him and let him know that they need some help or whatever. I don't know how that's gonna go. But Franklin, yes, he has a target on his back because he has no protection. He doesn't have the bodyguard anymore that he had this season. So I kind of feel like if Scully wanted to come after him, nothing would stop him from coming after Franklin. So I kind of feel like next season, that's the dynamic that we can look forward to, is the fact that we're going to have to see how these characters are going to operate individually, not within the family structure that they have always been in up to this point. So in terms of what happens with Scully, I think I definitely could see the character. Here's what I think would happen. If Jerome and Louis don't outright have something where they're working together with Scully, it's probably going to be a situation where every time they get money, they just give him a cut of that money, just as peace of mind, just to say, I guess they're trying to apologize for what happened with everything that took place. But I kind of feel like he still wants to be involved in some capacity, so it's hard to tell. But I think working with them is the best guess as to what's going to happen. But I do agree with you also. He still has a grudge because, again, even though he can forgive them for taking action and killing his wife, his girlfriend, and his daughter, I think it's going to be hard to truly forgive and forget what happened. And if he sees an opportunity to take down the people who made his life a miserable hell, I just think that he would do that. Whether that be snitching to the police and say, hey, I know they're doing something illegal, or actually, trying to kill them again. So we'll see what happens with that dynamic. But I definitely don't think the actor is done with the show. Mr. Brooks has done a great job this season. So I don't think that he's done with the show. DeAndre Brooks, that is.
Yeah, I don't think so. And he's been the way he was beefing with 50 Cent, over these shows. I don't think he's ready to quit yet. So,
well, maybe that could be a marketing tactic that he to reveal later. Oh, he's actually on Power, or he's on Raising Kanan, or one of these other shows that 50 is involved in.
Oh,
maybe
that was definitely all marketing, because that's a lot of these IG beefs with 50. Like, some of it is intentional, like, for marketing. So yeah, that was 100% marketing, but it was funny. It was funny.
It was funny.
But I read a theory, and people were saying that the reason Jerome wouldn't let Franklin into the room is because Scully was in there talking to Louis. So what do you think about that theory?
That's possible. That's possible. See, the thing is this, though. I could have swore that there was a police officer that was right at that door, right at the door in the room that they were in. That's why I assume that, well, this guy probably might have gotten taken into custody after he got, if he's still in the hospital recovering, whatever, but he got taken into custody right after that. That's why I don't know 100% if that's accurate. I think the mystery is they want us to have these questions going into the summer, going into the rest of the year, and then when the show returns in 2022, we get a definitive answer. But it's not out of the realm of possibility that he could have been in there. I mean, I just feel like at this point they would just discuss it. But what I thought when Jerome said that is I thought they would just discuss it, because I think at that moment they had a reflection of Franklin caused all of this. Because he did not act, because he got involved in this gang activity early in the season, it's like, and then you mean to tell me that I almost lost my life because of something that he didn't do or something that he got himself wrapped up in? I thought they were just disgusted. That's why they didn't want to see Franklin.
Yeah, that could very well be the case, I think.
Yeah, because you see the tone that Jerome had versus the tone that he had when they met with him later. It's just still kind of standoffish. They don't really want nothing to do with them. But in that moment, in that shock, just to think that one of them could have lost their life because of Franklin, I think they probably were angry more than anything else. That's why they said, no, we don't want to see anybody right now. You just do what you do. We'll talk later. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, definitely let us know your thoughts. This is your reminder, listeners. Let us know, what you think of this as well, because I do want to hear all of the wacky theories out there. So. Yeah, we have a lot of great listeners. Yeah, we definitely want to hear your feedback on these questions as well, please. Yeah. So let's get to your boy Alton then. So. Yeah. So yeah, like we said, these are like the biggest theories of the episode, because they didn't make it clear enough what happened, because of course there was no killing shown to us. We just see Reed with the gun, and Alton says a few words to him, and then it kind of cuts after that. So there's just from that alone, there's so many theories. And then also like the book, I can't remember the name of the book, but the book that Alton was reading has some significance as well to it's something about black people working with CIA or something like that. Yeah. So from that, people are kind of shaping a theory that Alton will actually end up working with Teddy or something. Which would go against his whole belief system if that is the case. So here's the deal. The name of that book is The Spook Who Sat by the Door. Right. And there actually is there actually also is a movie about this. But the premise of that book is a former CIA agent organizes black teenagers into well-trained guerrilla bands bent on overthrowing the white establishment. Okay, so here's the thing about that. Very interesting theories, because I also saw theories as to people saying that book is related to what happens with Alton. It would be, the thing about it, and we got to go back to the previous episode, when Teddy found out that he was going to be getting relieved of his duties, he had that conversation with Avi, and Avi was saying, well, you can still be useful, but you have to find another way to be useful. So if it was a situation where if he felt like, well, if they're going to get rid of me after all that I've sacrificed, now I have no choice but to hit back at them hard. It very well could be a situation where he could work with Alton to do just that. But the thing is that
why it's confusing and why they did this intentionally is because you look at Teddy, and this whole season, this character has been on a downward spiral, using the product, just very erratic in how he acts and does certain things. So, and of course, killing Irene. This makes you believe that you really don't know what this character. You can think that he has intentions to change his ways, but no, he's going to still always be himself. So that's why I say I think it was a very interesting decision for them not to show how that concluded, because I'm pretty sure that's one reason why there was some people that was disappointed in this episode, because they did not see and get a definitive answer as to what exactly happened with Elton and Teddy, at that particular moment in time. But if they were to work together, that'll be an interesting dynamic. My only thought is, if that happened, it's because Teddy wants to take down everybody in the operation. But of course, he doesn't want to harm Gustavo, but he definitely wants to take down the others because, again, we saw how much he sacrificed to keep this job all throughout the show. So you kind of understand his motives, why when he felt that he was being threatened, where his name is being outed by Alton, why he would take the action that he would take. But at the same time, Alton had a point as well in how the drugs were taking down the community. So it's these complex characters, very dynamic, very interesting, and it's hard to root for one or the other because both have points, but both have flaws in how they did what they did. So if I had to make a guess as to what happens with those two, I honestly feel like Alton is going to get killed, because the thing is this, it would push the story forward if that was to happen, in the sense that, one thing about it is that when the last conversation that Alton and Sissy had with Franklin before they boarded the plane, Alton says, "I love you." Franklin has nothing, doesn't say anything to him. But of course, he loves Sissy, and he tells her, "We got a business to run." She says, "Oh yes, I'll find a way to get in contact." So that tells me that, obviously, she still wants to, continue to be in contact with Franklin and talk about these things. But if Alton is killed, that, I'm sure when she calls Franklin, that's not going to be a pleasant conversation, and he's going to be angry about it at first. And he's going to be conflicted. Because I'm pretty sure even though he doesn't tell Alton he loves him, he still has some love and respect there, even though he stepped over the boundaries in terms of their relationship. So it's hard to really decipher which direction they're going to take that in. But it kind of feels to me like, because you saw Teddy had the gun out at that moment, like he could have shot him. And you saw at that moment, Alton did not fight back. He just turned his back and just stood there ready to take the shot. So either he does get killed or not, and then they decide to work together. But I definitely would like to see, if they are going to work together, how exactly that's going to work. If it's just about taking down the other CIA, I don't know. I just want to see how they're going to tell that story, because what we do know about Teddy is that anytime anybody has ever found out in this show that he's a CIA agent, he normally would just tell them. It happened. He told Gustavo this season, "Yes, I'm with the CIA." He would just tell people at a certain point. But in this case, Alton knows that information, so it's kind of hard to know which way this is going to go. But we'll have to see what happens. That's all I could say.
Yeah. I suppose. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no. One final thing I will say is, and I really do hope that this is not the direction that it does go. Alton, here's one thing. We know that Alton in the past has always never really helped out Franklin in these situations where Franklin got into trouble with like I said last week, when he got into the fight with the officers in the first season, and Alton walks off in the distance. And then when he was in jail, Alton tried to come and console him. He didn't want to see Alton. So that they have a complicated relationship. But one thing I don't want to see is that Teddy decides to work with Alton and they work together to take down Franklin. Now that would be an interesting dynamic, because Teddy is still involved, but now that he's out, technically he's not as involved.
Yeah. So So I was gonna actually say something like, because I tried to work out in my mind how it would work if
Yeah.
Alton and Teddy did, work together. So I guess it would be like, like you mentioned, Teddy would be working to take down that CIA operation with the whole Nicaragua operation or whatever, and we know that Alton's work is he sees himself as a revolutionary. He fights for justice and freedom from the oppressors and everything, right? And in this case, the oppressors would be the government, the CIA, because they're exploiting people in this case. So I guess that would be the strength that Teddy uses to kind of take down the operation. Like he'll use Teddy as kind of his mouthpiece, maybe, to kind of go that route. And I feel like if that happens and they get enough traction with that plan, there's probably going to come a time when Alton is going to reach out to Franklin himself and tell him what's going on, and tell him we can put an end to all of this and get our lives back, and put things right or whatever. And I think by that point, Franklin is going to be so deep in the game that he's not going to want to get out. He's going to want everything to stay the same so that he can keep, getting money, keep being the boss or whatever, right? So then that is going to cause the tension because Franklin is not going to be with the plan. And then, maybe that causes Alton and Teddy to both, go against Franklin. So that could be something that happens, it could work out like that. But who knows? I think if we're thinking about it logically, it makes more sense for Teddy to kill Alton, just kill him and then continue. That is if they want to extend the show and have it go further, just so that everything kind of stays how it was, even though Teddy isn't currently working with the CIA fully at the moment, but that would allow them to keep going as they were sort of in the past, like. And Ted, I mean that is going to cause drama too, because once Franklin finds out, he's not going to be happy, so that either way is going to probably cause tension. But yeah, like if they want to kind of like buy some more time, I guess it makes sense to kill Alton. But the thing we gotta think about is how soon is that news gonna get back to Franklin if that's the case, So
that's a great question. You talking about the news? What, that Alton is gets killed, or that?
That Alton gets killed. And you're probably about to say what I'm gonna say, so go ahead.
Okay, yeah, no, well, go ahead. No, go ahead. All I'm gonna say is I think that's how you open season 5, the very first episode. Because at that point, what we saw in this episode, it would be kind of foolish to prolong it longer. Like you saw that he was already at gunpoint. He had Alton at gunpoint. So I would imagine season 5 starts and Franklin gets a call from Mom and she tells him, yes, your father has been taken out. Obviously, Reed will probably make it look like an accident, like he did with Irene. But that is because again, that to me it starts the season off with a bang. A lot of questions as to what happened, and we know that Teddy, that Franklin is going to be very suspicious of Teddy anyway, because Teddy said that he was going to take a break. But that'll be my guess. Now, what was you going to say?
Okay, so that brings me to another theory that I kind of read. And I'm not saying I believe this. I'm just, entertaining it for the sake of this discussion, right? So some people think, based on, how Sissy acted, and the fact that she left and then Reed showed up, they think Sissy is in on it. That she could have set up Alton. Now, if we're looking at, Sissy's actions in the last few episodes, it seems like she does have love for Alton, because it seems like a few times she was considering, leaving with him when he made that proposal that they could, get away together or whatever. It seemed like she was really considering it. But we do know that she, in recent times, she does have a thirst for the business. Like she has kind of steered towards the darker side of things a little bit. And she does love Franklin. She has a lot of love for her son. So, I guess she does feel conflicted somewhat, because she loves Franklin a lot, and she's attracted to the business, that they were going to, set up together and everything. But at the same time, I do think she does have some love for Alton, and she has some compassion for him. And it's hard to believe that she would set him up to be murdered like that. So I don't know how valid that theory is, but it is an entertaining thought to consider. But what's your thoughts on that?
I also agree with what you said. We don't really. It is an entertaining theory to think about, and the reason why I think that person had that theory is because the timing of, let me go to the market for 2 hours. Like that's you told it. That's a specific window of time where you would just leave and go do your own thing. It's like, it almost feels like it was a setup to some degree. But again, after the fact that she was willing to jump in front of, when they were about to have that shootout, she was willing to jump in front of all of that to try to say, "Don't kill him. We'll leave. We'll leave." That's what makes me think, no, it can't be a setup, unless this is a conversation that happened after that moment that we didn't see on camera, which we will see in the season finale. I'm going to say in the season premiere of season 5. I mean, that's the only way I could think of it. But I agree that it did seem kind of odd to leave at that time. So I'll be gone for an hour or 2 at the market, because if you're not there, that is a window of time where anything could happen to Alton. Yeah. So I understand the theory, but it's hard to believe because of the fact that she was willing to sacrifice herself to protect him. So we definitely need some answers on that. And again, I think the writers, they did a fantastic job with the season, but they left a lot of questions intentionally open-ended because they want you to think about this stuff as to, well, how are they going to answer that question? We're not going to find out until next season. So, yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. I feel like I had some more thoughts on Alton, but I can't remember them now. But was there anything else that you kind of think may or may not happen with regards to Alton, Franklin, and Teddy?
Yeah, I just feel like here's the thing. Carl Seaton, who directed the episode, I saw that Kevin Carroll sent out a tweet last night thanking the fans for their continuous support of the show and giving him an opportunity to play on the show. A lot of people looked at that tweet and thought to themselves, well, this must mean that the Alton character is dead. But then I saw Carl Seaton replied to the tweet and said, I look forward to doing more stories with you. So that's what leads me to believe. I mean, obviously they could be working on other projects together, of course, but it's open-ended because it's not a confirmation that Alton is dead until we see or hear about it next season. But I do imagine we will know by the start of next season what's happened to him. It's hard to really gauge what's going to happen with that dynamic. But because, again, all of this season, you look at how they have transformed Teddy into a character who has also gotten darker along with Franklin. The fact that he's willing to kill people, keep the secret. The fact that he is willing to do whatever he can do, he and of course he's using the product. He likes the money, all this other stuff. So it's a thirst for power, much like Franklin is. So, but again, like you mentioned earlier, when he had the exchange, the shootout, and the way that Franklin was looking at him, Franklin was holding his gun up to Reed, and Reed was looking back like, you have a nerve to be still having your gun on me like this. That's why I say it's tension, but you know it's coming. You know the confrontation between these two is going to happen, and it's not going to be no misunderstanding. Something has to set that off. That's why I'm thinking that Alton does get killed, because that would set it off. However, I will say this: if for any reason Alton isn't killed, and still lives on, that's fine. But I do feel if Teddy ever consider killing Sissy, now that's a wrap.
Oh yeah.
Frankly, all hell will break loose with Franklin. Hell, even Jerome may have to get involved at that point because that's his sister. Yeah. But we'll see. It's open ended, so it's hard to really think how they're going to answer that question. I'm very curious to hear what the people that are listening, watching this show have to say, because they have a lot of great ideas as well. So hopefully they can come up with something as to what they think is going to happen as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, definitely hit us with your thoughts and theories on Alton and what you think is going to happen with that storyline. So speaking of Reed / Teddy, there's more to speculate about with regards to this character, because we now know that there's going to be a new CIA agent, or well, like you mentioned, it could be what's his name, the older guy, Avi. Yeah, it could be Avi. It could be a character we've already seen before, but more than likely it's going to be someone new. So there's going to be another CIA agent that comes in and takes over Teddy's operation. My next question was going to be, what does this mean for the future of Reed / Teddy, or in general, what is next for this character? But what was you about to say? Because
here's a great question. You set this up perfectly. Mm-hmm. What if this person that comes in is Teddy's baby mama?
Mm-hmm. That would be interesting.
Because if you recall, she was working with him before to set him up to get the intel so she can do what she does. But wouldn't it be interesting if she is someone that decides, well, now she wants to get involved with this the same way that Teddy was involved with it? Because that was the whole conflict as to why she separated herself away from him, was because he got too close to this. So that would be a very complicated situation. And to go on to what we were talking about before this with Alton, I think that if that was to happen, then you may start to see Teddy decide he wants to go against the CIA as well, which would play into the theory that he works with Alton to expose everybody that's involved and take them down. So that I could definitely see happening, because we didn't see that character at all this season. We didn't see her. We didn't see his son at all this season.
Yeah,
and I thought that was very odd. We haven't
seen her for a very long time.
Yeah. And, I thought that was very odd because, obviously we know that he decided to choose this over his life. You heard about his brother that died this season. So I kind of feel like when there ever something happens, like it's a family death that is very close, if it was me, I would want to check the other people who I do consider family or important in my life. I would want to check on them and see how they're doing. Yeah. But there has been no communication whatsoever with her. So it will be interesting if she is the one they bring in to get close to this, because now it makes things even more complicated for Teddy. But they did mention, though, I think they did say that there was a new guy coming in, so that kind of rules out that theory. I'm just saying that would be an interesting direction to go if it was her, because she got on him for being so obsessed about this stuff. Now she wants to jump into it. That would be kind of a crazy dynamic to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see.
Even though they said new guy, they could still change their mind and say, "Oh, actually, it's a woman."
That's true. That's true.
But yeah,
that's true.
I never thought of that. So that would be a real shocker if that happened. And it was his wife. And I think what's important as well is whoever it is that does replace Teddy, the most important thing is going to be their stance on how this job should be done, because they might not choose to do the same things that Teddy did. Like, they might try to, you know, go in another direction with it and say, okay, so we need to fund this war, but maybe there's a better way we can do this that doesn't, you know, lead to these drugs being sold in these communities and, you know, hurting these families and stuff. So they might have a completely different take on what should be done here. And then, you know, that might directly conflict with Gustavo, Franklin, you know, and I don't know what Teddy's stance is going to be after, but yeah, you know, that could cause a lot of problems for all of the main characters in the series. So,
oh yeah, and if you recall, when Teddy did have the conversation with his girl, the previous season, he was angry that she would even try to take him down, and that she's saying, "Oh, but no, I want to do this because I want to get you out of this. I want to get you out of this, and you could come home and we could be a family, all this other stuff." So I would think that, you know, he already is probably angry that he got taken out of the CIA because, again, this is why the Alton thing is connected theory, but it makes sense. Alton is trying to tell Teddy, you see that you were valued while you were part of this operation, but now that you're out, and then they turn their back on you and they do all this other stuff, how are you going to respond to this? Because my thought is, when Teddy had the conversation with Avi, and even when he had the conversation with Irene, I thought he was sincere about not liking how the CIA took him out, and that he actually does want to get revenge on them in some way, but they never revealed what that intention was. So it would be interesting if he does work with Alton, but again, I do feel you have to explain that, because some people may see that and then they will be confused. If they did not watch Snowfall for everything that has happened up until this point, they will definitely be confused. But then again, some people who do watch it may understand and think that's a great way to deal with the situation moving forward. So I don't know. They can go in so many directions, but whoever this new person is that they bring aboard, I think this person is definitely going to cause some issues. You know that Gustavo does not like to work with the CIA, because we saw that already with the exchange he had with Teddy's boss a couple episodes ago, where he was prepared to shoot this guy if he went into the office. So I don't think he's going to be fully cooperative with the CIA. I think he will do what he needs to do, but obviously his agenda is still to find Lucia and, you know, continue to, you know, get access to money in the product. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
And here's a scenario as well. Like, what if, you know, maybe one week, you know, episode 3 of season 5 or whatever, maybe Gustavo just disappears to go and look for Lucy, and during this time the new CIA person has to deal with Franklin directly. And what if they just decide to stop working with Franklin and say, okay, this is no longer going to happen anymore. We're not, you know, we're not supplying you no more.
That could happen. And to add on to your theory, if it's a situation where they do decide to stop working with Franklin, well, hey, wait a minute. Why don't we work with this Louis and Jerome? We hear that they also are good at what they do. That creates the issue, because the whole conversation that Franklin had, he don't want to be in competition with his family.
Yeah.
So they leave that wide open to happen now because of what happened this season.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, and it's funny too, because I'm pretty sure you've seen this theory floating around. Everyone is saying that Manboy was right, because as he was bleeding out when he got shot, he said, "Your family is going to turn on you. They're going to turn on you," and this is what's happening now. Not necessarily turning as in turning their back completely on him. They want to do their own thing. But again, when you get into the game deep and you get power and control, it can definitely change your motives and how you operate around even your family. So he was not off about what he said at all.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I mean, when you run your mouth that much, you're eventually going to say something very true.
Yes. That's correct. That's correct.
He said
That's
something
correct.
very true in his dying moments. So, so yeah. yeah, like this brings up a lot of possibilities. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see, where this goes with the new CIA agent. Because it could go in so many directions, and like you said, they might even just. It might not even be Jerome and Louis. They might just decide to work with somebody else completely. Like, maybe those other guys that were working with Leon or whatever.
Yeah, you know
Yeah.
what? It's funny you mentioned that too, because that is another problem that I think is coming. Is because you recall that Fatback's crew.
Yeah, Fatback's
It
crew.
took it took Jerome coming there willing to talk to them just for them to cooperate and work with Leon.
Yeah.
So Leon's definitely going to have problems with that guy in that crew if Jerome is not there, because Jerome is doing his own thing now.
Yep.
And that is definitely going to be a conflict. I think they introduced that for a reason this season, because they're just letting you know that because something was so soon as something happens to anybody in that crew, and after that guy said, if anything happens to any of these people, I'm coming after you. So Leon is going to definitely have some more issues going into season 5.
Yeah. Yeah. So it can get very interesting because Franklin is like this is like the least in control he's ever been. It feels like because now he's less powerful because he's lost his. He's his uncle and his auntie were like the strongest piece of his entire organization kind of thing, like because they were so street smart, they they were a big power acquisition for him, and now he's lost that.
Yep.
So he's weaker and he's vulnerable on all sides now because there's Melody, there's the possibility of Leon leaving. There's there's the new CIA agent. Yeah, there's Scully. Like there's so many different things that are threatening Franklin right now. So yeah. But with regards to Reed in particular, is there anything else at all you see for this character in season 5 of where this character will go next? I mean, of course. We've been talking about the tension between him and Franklin building up, so we know that that's probably coming. But is there anything more?
Part of me thinks that Reed is his job next season is going to be try to get back in the good graces of the CIA, to get back to the role that he had, because again he gave up so much just to keep this position, and then to get taken out just like that because of what happened with Irene. Yeah, it's we know that he didn't like that, and that was why he had to take action. So my guess is that he's going to continue to try to do what he can to get back involved in the operation at a high level. But depending on whether or not he is able to get back to that level, that could be the determining factor in terms of how he's going to move forward. Because his mindset is either I'm a part of this operation or I'm going to be against it. And he knows a lot of information. He knows contacts, etc. So he can certainly do his own thing to go against this. So that's an interesting dynamic. But at the same time, I think a lot of people feel that this guy is just power hungry. He's going to do whatever he needs to do to keep doing this operation. So we'll have to see what they do with the character next season. But they have a couple of different paths that he could take moving forward, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I don't think I have anything really to add to that. Like, I pretty much agree. So we're gonna end this off with just by basically saying our expectations for season 5 of Snowfall. So what are your expectations for season 5? What do you think we're gonna see? Is there anything you think should happen that that people might not have thought about? And do you think, like, we keep revisiting this discussion, but do you think it could possibly be the last one? And are there any more deaths that you see coming, and things of that nature? Like, what are your final expectations for the next season of Snowfall? based on what you saw in the finale?
So there's a lot to unpack. So my final expectations, there's going to definitely be a lot more tension. I feel like the relationship dynamic between Teddy and Franklin will be tested once again. And, I feel like because Teddy is out now on the outside, there's a lot of things that can happen. Either he will make a decision to try to get back in or go against the fold and try to expose everybody that is involved. Except for Gustavo, because he's really cool with Gustavo. So I don't think he would do anything to harm Gustavo. But him and Franklin, I kind of feel like after that tense, shootout, the tense, almost shootout that took place, I kind of feel like he's not going to really doubt Franklin. He's going to be suspicious, and he's going to be very careful with how he approaches that relationship moving forward. In terms of what I'm expecting next season, I kind of feel like episode 9 this season was a huge episode because of all the people that got killed in that episode. And yet we could come to the end of this episode and not one person from that main family cast has died yet. So I feel like it has to happen next season to really shift the focus and the balance of the show. If it means that Alton dies and then that now puts Franklin on a warpath with Teddy, I'm all for it if that's the direction. It could be a character that is we don't expect to die, that is highly important. I don't think they're going to do that yet, because I feel if you kill off Sissy, that really changes the show in a significant standpoint in terms of Franklin as a character. If you kill off his mom, I kind of feel like that would do something to the show, and that also means that the show would end sooner because Franklin's going to want to get revenge. After he gets revenge, after that, the show very well might end because he may want to get out the game after that happens. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to determine that. But I will say for sure, next season, there will be some major deaths. I kind of feel like what's going to happen in Arkansas is going to get out of control, very much out of control. Too much for Franklin. Too much for Louis and Jerome to handle. We know that Franklin is going to struggle operating on his own. He's going to have a lot more enemies. Of course, he's working with Leon. Leon is the one that's helping to sell his product. He's going to have to get some other people, though, that he trusts to work with to actually sell the product, because he no longer can rely on Manboy or Scully to sell product for him. So he has to get new connects. And I'm trying to think what else. And yeah, as far as Leon is concerned, next season is going to be about getting that character back to a different place, because this season the character was very vulnerable, and a lot of the stuff that he went through, some very deep traumatic events that he went through. So now you want to see, how is he going to evolve now that he's gone through all of this stuff? Is he going to revert back to being the Leon we knew before, or is he just going to be a totally, completely different person now? And how is he going to do what he can to try to get out of doing this, out of the drug game entirely? So it's a lot of dynamics that they can explore with season 5. Those are my guesses as to what's going to happen, but obviously, we'll see what happens, because any and everything is subject to change.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, indeed. This is a very unpredictable show, so who knows? What could happen. We can only speculate, but we have been right. Oh. We have been right somewhat, in the past. So it's good to guess. But
and one last thing, because you asked about the final season thing. Mm-hmm. After this episode, I will admit that I feel okay. Maybe we'll get to a season 6.
Yeah,
because I could see some of these other storylines playing out next season. But I still believe no more than 6 seasons. I feel like when you get to season 6, that's the end game of the show. In my personal opinion, I could be wrong. Maybe they can have this up to 10 seasons, but I doubt that. One thing I will say is that they did have a interview with Amin Johnson, who plays Uncle Jerome, a couple days ago, and they asked the question about how much longer you think this show is going to continue. And he said that it is definitely a finite show, and that it's going to end exactly when it makes sense to end it. So with that said, I feel like it definitely can end in at least season 6. I will be very surprised if FX came out and made an announcement and said season 5 is the last season, because it feels like there's still a lot that you need to address now that the situation is different. And one other thing that he did say, which I thought is very, very accurate to this particular episode, he said that when you look at how this season ended, it's kind of like it is a rebooting of the show, because now you have Franklin's doing his own thing, Louis and Jerome doing their own thing. So they kind of have rebooted what's happening. But the question is, how much longer can that last? So I'm curious to see, but I think season 6, that seems to me like that's a good number to end the show off of. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of what you just said, like, because a lot of people critique shows when, like, they end exactly how the season started, kind of thing. So, like, you know, if this season ended and the characters were in the exact same, spot they were at the start, you know, and, like, there was still a gang war happening, and you know, Teddy was still CIA, and Alton and Sissy was still, you know, around, and Jerome and Louis was still with Franklin or whatever. Like, if all of that was the case, then yeah, that would be a bad way to end the season, because they're exactly the same spot and nothing changed. But in this, a lot has changed, because, you know, like I just said, you know, Jerome and Louis are on their own, and Alton and Sissy are away. Alton could be dead, and you know, Manboy is dead. Khadijah, who else died? Irene, you know. So yeah, a lot has changed, and there's a new CIA agent coming into the mix. So enough has changed for this to really feel like a reboot. And I think this has created a lot of new energy to where now we want to know where this is going next. And I think if the writers manage to do that, they've done their job. You know, if they have you interested to know what could possibly happen next, then they are doing their job very well. So I give them respect for that. And as for my expectations for season 5, where do I start? So I'll start with this. So the CIA agent, I think we should all prepare to hate this character. I think this is gonna I think this is gonna be one of those super annoying TV characters that everybody hates and everybody wants to see killed off. Unless it's somebody that we already know, like we mentioned, like, you know, Teddy's wife or Avi or something, then maybe it'll be different. But if this is a new character, I think everybody's gonna hate the character, just immediately.
To annoy Gustavo.
Yeah, and to shake everything up, and, you know, like, this character is gonna cause a headache for so many characters. And I think viewers hate when new characters come in and just, like, shake everything up. So, and I think this is the kind of character we're gonna get. And I feel like if I'm gonna compare, you know, we always reference Power here because we cover that show too. I think this is gonna be like the Cooper Sacks of, you know, of Snowfall. Like, just the annoying guy that everybody hates, that everybody just wants to see killed off, but they seem indestructible, like they never die, basically. But
that's a perfect description. Yes, perfect.
Yeah. So that's my expectation of the new CIA agent. And I think we'll see a lot of new faces, actually, because, like you mentioned, Franklin doesn't have a lot of people he can trust now. A lot of people kind of left. Remember earlier this season, his driver left, or, you know, his bodyguard or whatever. So people just keep leaving him. And I guess that should kind of like show him that, you know, maybe he's the problem here. He should do some self-reflecting, but yeah, I think, and there's also T. You know, T, like, he was putting a lot of faith into T, and then she ended up being, you know, a double crosser, and he had to let her go and stuff. So I think he's at a point where he doesn't have a lot of people around him, and he's probably gonna be very lonely now. Like, so I think there's gonna be some new faces, because he's probably gonna have to recruit some people to you know, to work for him and help him with his, you know, distribution and everything. So yeah, I expect to see a lot of like new faces on the streets and everything, and working directly with Franklin. So that should be interesting. There was something else that I was gonna say. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm gonna say a point after you're done.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think with Louis and Jerome, I think we're gonna see a lot of them bouncing between LA and Little Rock. So you know, I think there'll be a lot of like development. We're gonna see the story with that family play out, I think. And you know, Louis and Jerome are going to be in the mix of that, but we're also going to see them in LA at times as well, because I guess they have to re-up as well. Like, they have to, you know, buy the stuff from Franklin. So I think, you know, we're going to see a lot of them kind of doing their own thing, and I think that's going to be refreshing to see as well. I think really, like, they're going to be like the most likable characters maybe, you know, next season, because Franklin, it's like a love-hate kind of thing with him. Like, some people really don't like him. Some people some people enjoy watching his power trips and everything. But with Louis and Jerome, they have more of a likable kind of aura to them, I think. So
yeah,
so they might
I agree.
They might be like the most likable characters to watch, I think, in the next season. And yeah, Leon, I think we're gonna see him kind of drift away. He already said that his heart might not be in it. It might not be for him anymore. I think we're gonna see more of that, you know, develop, especially with Wanda. You know, I think him and Wanda are gonna get closer again. And you know, they're gonna maybe make plans to kind of get away from the lifestyle and stuff.
Hopefully, if she doesn't relapse, I don't want that to happen. Please don't let that relapse happen.
Hopefully not. I mean, hey, you never know. But maybe Franklin tries to get her to relapse intentionally, just to mess up Leo.
Yeah, that man, that would be that would be harsh. But yes, he would do something like that.
Yeah, and that's going to be my last point right there. I think Franklin is going to further damage the relationships that he has. So like the one with Teddy, I think that's going to be damaged in the next season. And then Leon, who has been like perhaps his most loyal friend throughout this whole show, I think he's going to further damage that friendship. And what I just said about Wanda, that could very well be the case, you know, of what does it, you know. But yeah, I definitely feel like, you know, he's at a place where he doesn't have a lot of people that he can trust, like I just said a while ago. But the people he does have that he can trust, he's probably going to damage those relationships completely. So then there'll be nobody after that. So yeah, I think, you know, once you start to get on that power trip, on that level of power where you feel untouchable, that's when you alienate yourself the most. And I think that's what's going to happen to Franklin, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But what was you going to say?
I'll just add this real quick. To go back to what I had mentioned earlier, that and Joseph had that interview. He did mention in that interview that, you know, I think everyone can pretty much know that the show is great, but we already know it's not going to have a happy ending. It's going to be a tragic ending. So everything you said about Franklin further damaging his relationships makes total sense to me. And when you mentioned the whole thing about him recruiting other people to join, whether it's selling or whatever, I do see a dynamic where Jerome and Louis are also going to be recruiting. And if they happen to be recruiting people selling in LA, that is a direct conflict. Some of those people may be getting approached by Franklin as well. So that is going to be a very interesting to see how that pans out. But it's definitely going to be a lot of tension, and it's because Franklin does not want to accept the fact that, you know, they were there for me from the very beginning. They've proven that they can do this. So why can't I just trust them? I'll just just let them do their own thing. It doesn't need to be anything personal. That, you know, you're still working with them. You're still giving them product, but things are definitely going to get rocky between them moving forward. And the very final point that I was going to make is the description of this episode would have you believe that Reed actually did kill Alton, because the thing is, it said the description was Franklin's family fractures, Reed makes a difficult decision, and Gustavo chooses a new path. So when you read that description, it makes it seem like Reed did make the decision to kill Alton, but they just didn't show it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then with Franklin, we saw what happened at the end of the episode. Yes, the family is now split. So they have to answer that question, obviously, next season. But it's in any event, they did a fantastic job this season. And when you can't necessarily think of how everything is going to play out next season, just like you said, that means they've done an excellent job, because it's not too predictable as to what's going to happen next.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, that's that's our expectations of Snowfall season 5. Hopefully, we get it sooner rather than later. I hope I hope the filming goes smoothly this year, because I know the season 4 they filmed it under COVID restrictions and stuff. So and they did an amazing job of that. So
they did a fantastic job. Yeah, they had a video about all that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope it goes smoothly for them, with regards to season 5. And once again, I want to give big props to the writers of and the entire studio that makes Snowfall, and FX and everything included. They did a great job with the season. This is definitely one of the best TV shows on TV right now, in my opinion. And yeah, I loved it. I loved the whole season. There were a few moments where it was like, I'm not sure about that, but if I'm looking at the entire season, it was very consistent and very good compared to other shows out there. So
I agree.
Big props. And do you have like a final summary of this whole season?
Yeah, I think they did a phenomenal job from the beginning of the season to the end. As you said, there were a couple of slow points in there, but everything paid off ultimately in the end. Episode 9, I still think that was the best episode of the season. This episode probably comes in right close behind it because of all the tension. Like I said, this whole episode is a lot of tension. Of course, every question wasn't answered. But that doesn't matter. I mean, the whole point is they want you to get interested and know that we have plenty more story to tell with season 5, and they did just that. So I think excellent job. Props to everyone who worked on the show, even under these restrictions that they had. They did an amazing job, and I think John Singleton will be very proud of what they're doing with this show, even though he's no longer here to enjoy it himself. Yeah. So
rest in
props
peace
for sure.
Yeah, indeed. But yeah, so that concludes, our Snowfall aftermath. We will be back covering this show again when season 5 does return, whenever that is. So, if this is the only thing you like from us, then you can subscribe to the Snowfall playlist, and then once it comes back, you'll start to see the episodes again. And the link to that playlist will be in the description. But please do check out the other content on the channel also, and the website, thekoalition.com, Koalition spelt with a K. We have a lot of different content. We cover a lot of different shows, like the Invincibles and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and many other shows. We're also going to be covering Power, Raising Kanan, when that airs on TV as well. So
I think that starts this summer. Yeah.
Yeah.
No release date yet, but summertime.
Yep.
Looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to that one. And we cover video games as well. So if you're into gaming, then that's also another thing that we do. So we thank everybody for being on this journey with us as we cover this season of Snowfall. We thank everyone who took the time to leave a comment, who hit the like button, and we actually got a lot of subscribes from this too. So I appreciate all those people who subscribed based on that. So I hope you guys enjoy yourselves, stay healthy, have a great 2021. I hope it's a lot better for you, than maybe last year was for most people. Make sure you leave them comments, because I will be reading all of them, because I can't wait.
I'm looking forward to the comments also.
I'm obsessed with these Snowfall theories right now, so I want to see all of them. So yeah. But yeah, take care, people, and take care of yourself also, Rich.
You too, Gary.
Peace out.